"You'll be sitting at table 12 with the school district staff," the wedding coordinator said, not even looking up from her clipboard. My daughter-in-law, Patty, smiled that cold smile of hers. "We can't have the education crowd mixing with the legal professionals. It would be awkward. My name is George Thompson, I'm 55 years old, and I just heard my son's wife tell me I wasn't good enough to sit with my own family." I stood there in my best suit, the navy one my late wife Maggie had picked out for me before the cancer took her 3 years ago. The price tag was still in my head, $180 at Sears, marked down from $240. Maggie had insisted I get something nice for special occasions. "You never know when you'll need to look important," she'd said. Well, here I was at the most important day of my son's life, and apparently I still didn't look important enough. 32 years of teaching high school English at Lincoln High. Started when I was 23, fresh out of college with student loans up to my eyeballs. Put in my time, helped kids get into college, stayed late for tutoring, spent my own money on books when the budget got cut. My pension comes out to $2,800 a month now. Not rich, but I get by, Tim. My boy just looked down at his shoes. Not a word, not even a glance my way. This was the kid I'd raised alone after Maggie died. The one I'd worked double shifts tutoring just to pay for his law school. $45 an hour, evenings and weekends. Made an extra $800 some months, which doesn't sound like much until you're trying to stretch a teacher's salary. The Riverside Country Club was something else. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, the whole works. Membership probably cost more than I made in 2 years. Patty's people were everywhere, lawyers in $2,000 suits, judges, partners from her daddy's firm. Coleman and Associates had been around for 40 years, made their money on corporate law, real estate deals, the kind of stuff that paid serious money. The Coleman family had everything I apparently didn't bring to the table. Her dad, Rick Coleman, drove a Mercedes S-Class. Her mom, Sue, wore jewelry that sparkled from across the room. Patty herself had that confidence that comes from never worrying about money. Never having to check your bank account before buying groceries. Table 12 sat way in the back near the kitchen doors. I could count the tables between me and where Tim would be standing, 14 tables. Maybe 120 people between me and my own son's wedding ceremony. The good tables, numbers 1 through 8, were reserved for Coleman family and their important friends. Tables 9 and 10 held business associates. Table 11 had extended family from out of town. And table 12, that's where they stuck the school people. I recognized Mrs. Henderson from the district office, a couple of principals I'd worked with over the years. Good people, but clearly not Coleman level important. From my seat, I could hear the catering staff rushing around behind the swinging doors, plates clinking, someone calling out orders. The smell of prime rib and roasted vegetables drifted out every time the doors opened. The whole setup reminded me of those old movies, where the servants eat in the kitchen, while the fancy folks dine in the main hall. I just settled into my chair, trying not to think about how Maggie would have handled this situation, when someone pulled out the seat next to me. "Mind if I join you? Looks like they've got us back here with the real people." I turned and nearly dropped my water glass. Charles Foster, Charlie. I hadn't seen him in almost 30 years, but those blue eyes were unmistakable. A little grayer around the temples now, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my car, but still the same guy I used to tutor back when we were both trying to make something of ourselves. "Charlie, what the hell are you doing here?" He grinned and straightened his tie. Silk, probably Italian, the kind of thing I'd seen in magazines but never owned. Funny story about that, Coleman and Associates handle some legal work for my company. When I saw your son's name on the invitation list, he leaned closer. "They have no idea who I am, do they?" Before I could answer, I caught sight of Patty across the room. She was pointing in our direction, saying something to her mother with that pinched look on her face, the one that usually meant someone wasn't living up to her standards. Mrs. Coleman followed her gaze, squinting at our table like she was trying to solve a puzzle. Charlie wasn't just some guy from the old neighborhood anymore. Charles Foster was the Charles Foster, CEO of Foster Investment Group, the company that had been buying up half of downtown Chicago over the past 5 years. I'd read about him in the Tribune's business section, net worth somewhere north of $500 million, they said. The kind of money that bought respect whether you were born with it or not. "Let me guess," Charlie said, watching the Coleman women start moving toward us like sharks smelling blood in the water. "Your charming daughter-in-law thought putting the retired teacher at the staff table would keep you out of the family photos." Something like that. My voice came out rougher than I'd intended. The whole situation was getting to me more than I wanted to admit. Charlie's expression hardened a bit. "You know, George, I've been in a lot of boardrooms, met a lot of powerful people. Most of them wouldn't cross the street to help a stranger. But I remember a guy who stayed after school 3 nights a week, for free, to help some punk kid understand Shakespeare that hit me harder than I expected. You were a good student, Charlie, just needed someone to believe in you. More than that, you bought me books when my family couldn't afford them. Drove me to college interviews when my dad's car broke down. Hell, you probably spent $500 of your own money on me that year. $500 was a lot of money back then. Hell, it was a lot of money now. But seeing Charlie succeed, watching him build something from nothing that was worth every penny I'd spent. Patty reached us first, her wedding dress making that swishing sound against the chairs. Up close, you could see the calculation in her eyes, trying to figure out who Charlie was and how much damage control she needed to do. Her dress probably cost $8,000, maybe more. Everything about the Coleman family screamed money, the kind that opened doors and bought silence. "I don't believe we've met," she said to Charlie, extending her hand with that practiced smile she'd learned in law school. "I'm Patty Coleman Thompson." Charlie stood slowly, every inch the businessman. When he wanted to, the guy could command a room just by existing. Charles Foster. I was just telling George here how nice it is to see him again after all these years. The name hit her like a slap. I watched Patty's smile flicker and die. Her hand stayed frozen in the air for a second too long. Behind her, Mrs. Coleman had gone pale as her pearls. "Foster?" Patty's voice cracked slightly. "As in Foster Investment Group, that's right." Charlie settled back into his chair like he owned the place, which considering his company's real estate portfolio, he might as well have. "George, here's an old friend. We go way back." I found myself sitting straighter for the first time all day. Charlie used to come by after school when he was having trouble with Hamlet. Smart kid, just needed someone who gave a damn. More than that, Charlie said, his voice carrying across the nearby tables. Other guests were starting to turn around, trying to figure out why one of Chicago's most powerful businessmen was sitting at the teacher's table. George tutored me for free when my family couldn't afford it, stayed late, came in on weekends. My old man was working 2 jobs. My mom was cleaning houses. We had maybe $200 left over each month after rent and groceries. I remembered Charlie's family. His dad worked construction and drove a delivery truck on weekends. His mom took in laundry and cleaned offices at night. Good people, but they didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. Charlie wore the same 3 shirts to school all year, rotated his 1 pair of decent jeans. I wouldn't be where I am today without him. Charlie continued loud enough for half the room to hear. George spent his grocery money to buy me books because he knew I couldn't afford them. That's the kind of man who shapes leaves, who builds communities. The silence around us was getting uncomfortable. I could see judges and lawyers at the good tables straining to hear every word. Probably wondering how they'd missed the connection between the retired teacher and one of the most influential men in Chicago. Charlie pulled out his phone. The latest iPhone, probably $1,200. "You know what, George? I think we should catch up properly. Are you free Monday morning? I've got a business proposition for you." I blinked. A proposition? I'm funding a new education initiative. $50 million over 5 years to help kids from working-class families get into college. Need someone with real classroom experience to run it? Someone who understands what these kids go through. His smile turned genuine. Starting salary $8,400 a month, plus benefits and travel allowances. Interested, $8,400 a month. 3 times my pension. More money than I'd ever made teaching, even with the tutoring income. The room had gone completely quiet. Even the catering staff had stopped clattering around in the kitchen. Tim appeared at our table like a ghost, his face flushed red. "Dad, we didn't know you'd be here, Mr. Foster." Charlie smiled, but it was cold around the edges. "Your father and I are old friends, Tim. Though I have to say, I'm surprised to see him sitting back here with the service staff. In my experience, family usually sits together." Tim's mouth opened and closed. I could see him calculating, trying to figure out how to fix this mess without making it worse. Patty grabbed his arm, her nails digging into his sleeve hard enough to leave marks. "There was a seating mix-up," she said quickly, her lawyer training kicking in. "Of course George should be with the family." "Funny thing about mix-ups," Charlie said, standing again. The man was 6'2", and when he wanted to intimidate someone, he knew how to use it. They usually reveal what people really think. He looked around the room, his voice carrying to every corner. "I remember when George spent his lunch money to buy me a copy of The Great Gatsby because mine got stolen from my locker. $35 he couldn't afford, but he knew I needed that book for my college application essay." A murmur went through the crowd. The story was spreading from table to table like wildfire. I could see people whispering, cell phones coming out. This was going to be all over social media before the ceremony even started. Rick Coleman pushed through the crowd, his face tight with panic. "Mr. Foster, perhaps we should discuss this privately." "Privately?" Charlie's eyebrows went up. "Rick, you and I need to talk about a lot of things. Your firm's lease on the Michigan Avenue building, for instance. Comes up for renewal next month, doesn't it?" I watched the color drain from Rick's face. Foster Investment Group owned half the commercial real estate in downtown Chicago. If they wanted Coleman and Associates out, the firm would be scrambling to find new office space in a market where Charlie controlled most of the premium locations. Now see here, Rick started, but Charlie held up a hand. No, Rick, you see, your family just told one of the finest men I've ever known that he wasn't good enough to sit with his own son at his own son's wedding. A man who changed my life, who probably changed hundreds of kids' lives over 32 years of teaching. The crowd was eating this up. I could see phones recording, people posting to Facebook and Instagram in real time. This was going to follow the Coleman family forever. Charlie turned back to me. George, what do you say we get some fresh air? Let the happy couple enjoy their reception. I stood up feeling lighter than I had in years. Sounds good to me, Charlie. As we walked toward the exit, I heard Patty hiss at Tim. Do something. Your father is ruining everything. But for the first time in 3 years, my son found his backbone. No, Patty. We already ruined it ourselves outside. Charlie and I found a quiet spot by the fountain. The evening air felt good after the stuffiness inside. The fountain was one of those fancy jobs with 3 tiers, probably cost $20,000 to install. Water trickled down from level to level, making a peaceful sound that almost blocked out the music drifting from the reception. So, Charlie said, loosening his tie. How have you really been, George? I thought about it. The lonely dinners for one, the empty house that felt too big without Maggie's laughter filling it. The phone calls from Tim that came exactly every 2 weeks, like he'd set a reminder on his calendar. Getting by. Missing Maggie every day, but getting by. Charlie nodded. I lost Sarah 2 years ago. Heart attack. Came out of nowhere. She was only 52, never had health problems. One day she was planning our anniversary trip to Ireland. Next day she was gone. We stood there for a while, 2 guys who'd survived loss and come out different on the other side. The fountain kept bubbling, and I could hear laughter from inside the country club. Rich people celebrating, probably already forgetting about the drama at table 12. The job offer, I said finally. Are you serious about that? Dead serious. I've been looking for someone to head up the Foster Foundation's education programs for 6 months. Someone who gives a damn about kids from working families, who knows what it's like to stretch $1 and still make miracles happen. He looked at me sideways. Know anybody like that? I laughed for the first time all day. I might know a guy, good, because I also know someone who could use a fresh start. Charlie grinned. What do you think about Italy? We're opening a sister program in Tuscany. Someone needs to oversee the transition, maybe spend 3 months a year over there. Italy. Maggie had always wanted to see Italy. We'd saved up for our 25th anniversary, had $30,200 put away for flights and hotels. But the cancer treatments ate through our savings faster than we could replace it. Insurance covered most of the big stuff, but copays and prescriptions added up quick. By the end, we were $18,000 in debt just keeping her comfortable. Charlie, I don't know what to say. Say yes. Say you're ready to stop letting other people decide what you're worth. Before I could answer, footsteps crunched on the gravel behind us. Tim approached slowly, his tie-loose jacket hanging open. He looked older than his 28 years, like the weight of what just happened was finally hitting him. Dad, can we talk? Charlie squeezed my shoulder. I'll be inside working out some business details with the Coleman family. Take your time. Tim waited until Charlie was gone, then sat heavily on the fountain's edge. I really screwed up, didn't I? I sat next to him, the way I used to when he was little and needed help with homework. What do you think? I think I forgot who raised me. I think I let Patty convince me that where we came from was something to be ashamed of. His voice cracked. I think I dishonored Mom's memory and threw away everything you taught me. That got to me more than I expected. This was my boy, the one who used to help me grade papers after dinner, who'd sit at the kitchen table doing homework while I planned lessons. Somewhere along the way to law school and fancy law firms, he'd lost track of what mattered. Tim, your mother and I didn't work 2 jobs and eat mac and cheese 4 nights a week so you could be ashamed of us. We did it so you could have opportunities we never had. He nodded, wiping his eyes with his sleeve. Patty's family made success sound like it meant leaving everything behind. New money, new friends, new values. Success means taking the best of your past and building something good on top of it. I put my hand on his shoulder. Your mother would want you to be happy, but not at the cost of your integrity. I remember the first day I brought Patty home. You made that pot roast Mom used to make, spent all afternoon cooking. Patty barely touched it, kept checking her phone. Later she said our house smelled like poor people food. I remembered that dinner, spent $45 on groceries I couldn't really afford, wanted to make a good impression. Patty had sat there like she was afraid she'd catch something from our secondhand furniture. Why didn't you tell me how she really felt? Tim shrugged. I thought I could change her mind. Thought if I worked hard enough, made enough money, proved I belonged in her world, she'd come to appreciate where I came from. And did she? No, she just got better at hiding it. He looked back toward the country club. Until today. Today she couldn't hide it anymore. We sat there as the sun finished setting over Lake Michigan, father and son trying to find our way back to each other across 3 years of polite distance and awkward conversations. Dad, when you decide about Mr. Foster's offer, can we talk about it? Really talk, like we used to? I looked at my son, lawyer, husband, man trying to remember who he used to be before he got caught up in impressing people who would never really accept him. I'd like that, Tim. Inside the country club, I could see people moving around, the reception winding down. Probably lots of uncomfortable conversations happening at the Coleman family tables right about now. What happens next? Tim asked. I don't know. But whatever it is, we'll figure it out together. For the first time in 3 years, that felt like the truth. Charlie eventually found us and handed me a thick envelope. Contract details, he said simply. Look it over when you get home. No pressure, but I think you'll find the terms more than fair. I opened it briefly. The salary figure jumped out at me, minus $8,400 a month, plus health insurance, dental, vision, and a $15,000 annual travel allowance. There were housing stipends for the Italy program, education budgets for materials, even a car allowance. At the bottom, a handwritten note. For the teacher who never stopped believing in lost causes, thanks for everything. CF Charlie, this is incredible. Just think about it, he said. And George? Some people spend their whole lives looking for respect. You earned yours a long time ago, time you started collecting. As we walked back toward the parking lot, Tim fell into step beside me. The reception was breaking up, guests heading to their cars. I could see the Coleman family huddled together near the valet stand, probably trying to figure out how to do damage control. Dad? Tim stopped me before we reached my car. When you make your decision about Mr. Foster's offer, can we talk first? I mean, really talk. Not those awkward phone calls we've been doing. I looked at my son, lawyer, husband, man trying to find his way back to the person I'd raised. I'd like that, Tim. Maybe next Sunday? Come over. I'll make that chili you used to love. For the first time in months, Tim smiled like he meant it. Yeah, I'd really like that. The valet brought my old Ford around, same car I'd driven to parent conferences and late-night calls from students who needed help. It looked pretty humble next to all the Mercedes and BMWs, but it had served me well. Still only had 87,000 miles on it after 8 years. Charlie's Bentley pulled up behind my Ford. Must have cost $200,000, maybe more. George, he called through his window. One more thing. Coleman and Associates? Their lease comes up for renewal in 6 weeks. Current rent is $18,000 a month for their floor. I'm thinking the new rate should be $32,000 with some interesting clauses about professional conduct standards. I smiled. Business is business, right? Exactly. Oh, and George, pack a bag next month. I want to show you the Italy program in person before you make your final decision. First class tickets, 5-star hotel, the works, you've earned it. As I drove home through the Chicago streets, past the neighborhoods where I'd spent my career, I felt something I hadn't felt in 3 years. Hope, maybe. Or just the satisfaction of watching things work out the way they should. I turned on the radio, some jazz station Maggie used to like. The music filled the car as I thought about everything that had happened. This morning I'd been a lonely widower getting ready for his son's wedding. Tonight I was looking at a new career, maybe a new life. My house looked small when I pulled into the driveway. 2-bedroom ranch, 1,200 square feet, built in 1967. Knitted paint, new gutters, probably a new roof within 5 years, but it was mine, paid off after 30 years of mortgage payments. Maggie's roses were still blooming by the front porch, the ones she'd planted the year before she got sick. Inside, I poured myself a whiskey, the good stuff Maggie had bought me for my 50th birthday. Jameson Irish, $45 a bottle. I'd been saving it for special occasions that never seemed to come. Tonight felt special enough. I sat down at the kitchen table and spread out Charlie's contract. The Italy program was impressive, working with local universities to create exchange opportunities for American kids from working-class families. Kids like Charlie had been like most of my students over the years. 3 months in Tuscany each summer, helping coordinate the program, maybe doing some teaching. The base salary alone was more than I'd ever dreamed of making. Add in the benefits, the travel allowances, the housing stipends, and I'd be making close to $120,000 a year, enough to fix up the house, maybe travel a little, enough to help Tim if he needed it, though something told me he was going to be just fine. My phone buzzed. A text from Tim. Dad, Patty wants to apologize. Really apologize, not the lawyer kind. Maybe we could all have dinner this week. I thought about it for a minute, then typed back Sunday chili first, just us. Then we'll see. Another buzz, this one from Charlie. Forgot to mention the Italy program includes a $25,000 signing bonus. You've been underpaid for 32 years. Time to catch up. I stared at the number. $25,000. More money than Maggie and I had ever had in savings at one time. Enough to finally take that trip to Ireland she'd always wanted, even if I'd be going alone. Or maybe I wouldn't be going alone. Charlie had mentioned he was widowed too, that he'd lost Sarah 2 years ago. Maybe two old friends could figure out this second chance thing together. The house felt quiet, but not lonely anymore. Outside, a car drove by, probably someone heading home from a Saturday night out. Normal people living normal lives, not knowing that sometimes everything can change in a single conversation. I raised my glass toward Maggie's photo on the mantel. Here's to new beginnings, sweetheart. I think you'd approve. Tomorrow would bring phone calls, decisions, maybe some difficult conversations with the Coleman family. But tonight was mine. Tonight I was George Thompson, respected educator, valued friend and father to a son who was finally remembering where he came from. It had been a good day after all. Sometimes the people who look down on you today are only one phone call away from needing your help tomorrow. Real respect isn't about money. It's about the lives you've touched along the way. You can't buy dignity, but you sure can lose it by treating others like they're beneath you. The strongest revenge is living well and watching karma do the rest.